Okay, Rabbi, we are going to be doing some Chazarah on Yerushalmi Peah. So we'll start with Daf Aleph. So the mission, of course, started with the various things we don't have a shiur. We mentioned Peah and Bikurim, and the mitzvah of Re'iyah and the Regel, doing Chesed, and then the various things where a person has parents in this world and the Karen is there for the next world. And we mentioned the list of honoring one's parents, Chasadim, making peace between people, and Talmud Torah was shakal against all of them. Then the Gemara asked, we mentioned 5 mitzvahs who don't have a shiur, so the question is why the Mishnah didn't mention other mitzvahs, then we didn't mention others. Now, Rabbi Yamba Lefes, Rabbi Yitzchok, etc., they were asking, why didn't we mention Truma in the list? That mitzvah of Haproshas Truma hasn't got a shiur. So the Gemara answers that Rabbi said because there was an argument about that, so it wasn't everyone's opinion. Rabbi Yossi, although it hasn't got a shiur, but there were various opinions about it. Rabbi Yossi said you can make your whole field Bikurim, but you can't make your whole field Truma. But then they asked, well, what about Peah? You can't make your whole field Peah, and yet we mentioned that in the list. So then Rabbi Yossi said, well, the first cutting, or the first crop, which is obligating Peah, is like stacking up the Kri, doing the Meruach, and until you cut that first one, there's no chiyuv of Peah. Once you cut the first one, that's when the chiyuv of Peah comes about. And if you want to make your whole field Peah, then you can. So there's no shiur for Peah, because from the time when you cut the first one, when the obligation of Peah comes about, then you can make your whole field Peah. That's why it's included amongst the mitzvahs which have no shiur. Turning to Daf Beis, as far as Truma is concerned, before the Meruach, there's no chiyuv of Truma at all. And if you want to make your whole section Truma, you can't do it, and we bring a raya from it says Kol Goni Truma, one who says that it's not valid, you've got to leave a bit behind. Now the first shibolis that you actually cut from the field, is that itself chayv with Peah? Now the Gemara asks, that obligates the whole field with Peah, so how can it be that it itself should be chayv with Peah? And then the Gemara has another question. If you cut the first shibolis, it got burnt. What's the din? Do you have to cut a second one? So the Gemara wants to bring a proof from, if you cut, let's say, half a field and you sold what you've cut, or you cut half and then you made hekdesh what you've cut, you can give for the remainder, for all the produce of the field, against even the stuff that you've already sold, already made hekdesh. Now, the stuff that you've given as hekdesh is as if it's burnt. It should be the same din. So basically it tells me that when you've cut the first one and it got burnt, it's not as if it's never been cut the first one. We treat the chiyuv soda as if that one is still around, and therefore you don't have to start cutting a second time before you're mafresh Peah. Now if you cut a whole field without leaving Peah, we said the chiyuv of Peah goes back to the Ibrim, to all the bundles that have been cut. The chiyuv of Peah will go on them. Now the other one's got a question, what about that first one that was cut? Does the chiyuv of Peah go back on that as well? So Rabbi Yossi says that we can learn Peah of Imrim from the Peah which is in the field. Just like Peah which is in the field, the Peah does not go back to that first shibolis that was cut, so also the Peah of bundles does not go back to the first Peah in that first cutting, the first shibolis that was cut. Now Peah hasn't got a shiur below, hasn't got a minimum shiur, it hasn't got a shiur above, whereas Bikurim and Re'iyah, they don't have a shiur not above, not maximum, and not minimum. So when the Mishnah says the following don't have a shiur, there's no shiur above maximum. We're not saying that there's no shiur for minimum, because Peah does actually have a shiur rabbanon, which you shouldn't do less than that. And some want to say actually Peah and Bikurim Ra'ayan, they don't have a shiur at all, not a maximum, not minimum, because Minat Torah they don't have a shiur at all. Nafkamina between the various prices is about 1 in 60. Because if you hold that Peah has a shiur below, but it hasn't got a shiur above, then what you've given, let's say, you separate Peah for the poor, you can't go and take it back. But if you've given less than the shiur, which the Chachamim want you to give, you've not yet done the mitzvah properly, and you're not yet exempt from the mitzvah Peah. So whatever you've separated, or even if Chazar, you went and added a bit more, then the din is, there will be a meister obligation until you make up the shiur which the Chachamim wanted. So until you get to that 1 in 60 point, then there will be a master obligation. And when you get to that shiur of Peah, which the Chachamim told you to get to, then it will be potter from master. Now, according to the other opinion, the other brisa that said Peah Bikurim don't have a shiur not above and not below, and then wherever you've given for Peah, it's got a Shem Peah, and you are exempted from Peah, you have fulfilled the mitzvah of Peah, And since you've done a mitzvah, if you go and add more peah later on to make up the shir, then there will be a chiyuv maasros in what you add on, because you already were fulfilling the mitzvah in Torah with the first amount that you gave. Then Rabbi asked, why don't we mention our mission of the earth of a saita, or the ephah, the ashes of a parah, or the saliva of a yavama, or the blood of a mitzvah, which they don't have a shiur. So the Gemara answers, we only want to mention things which you add on, and there is a mitzvah by doing them. Whereas these things, these 4 mitzvahs, although you can add on to them, there's no mitzvah by adding on. Turning to Daf Gimel, Re'ayon, we said, which is the mitzvah of Re'iyah, being seen in the Azara on the regel. We're talking here about physically going inside, and there's no shear for that. A person goes once, he fulfills his duty, he can go again. But as far as the carbon is concerned, there is a shear. And that fits in like the opinion of Yochanan, who said there's mal kesef and shtei kesef, the Torah din. Therefore, there is riyas carbon, there's a shir and a Torah not to do less than that. Rabbi Yasser learnt, before Rabbi Yochanan, that re'iyah can even be even a smallest amount. It was the Chachamim who gave the shir for the carbon of mal kesef. There was re'iyah and the chagiga, re'iyah kesef, mal kesef for elas re'iyah, and 2 pieces of kesef for carbon chagiga. But minat Torah, there's no shir. It was a Chachamim shir. So it could be when the Mishnah said, we're talking about riyas carbon, it's got no shir minat Torah. Now, is there an idea that the Torah didn't give a shir, the Chachamim gave a shir? So Rabbi Yonah says, well, we find that a lot. We find the shiurim quite a lot. The Chachamim were the ones, Gazais from a mace, Gazais nevela, Adasha from Sheretz. So then the Gemara says, no, what it means is, he's not asking about the Brisa, he's asking, that Rabbi Shilin, la yiro pen irekam, even a carbon worth anything is that you're fulfilling the mitzvah. Chachamim were the ones who said, Mal kesef shtei kesef. And how did the Torah says Reikam, how can the Tanna come along and give an amount? And the Chachamim were the ones, they said Mal kesef and shtei kesef. It's all very well the Torah didn't give a shir, but here the Torah clearly spelt it out that there's no shir, or even the carbon. So how can the Chachamim come along and give a shir, which is against what the Pasuk seems to say? So, Rabbi Yasser, Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan said all the shiurim halach l'Moshe Sinai, and therefore the shir of Mal Kesef and Shtei Kesef, they really are from the Torah, they are halach l'Moshe Sinai. We're telling you to Gimel Amud Beis. Rav Osha was the one who said that the shir of Karbanis is through the Chachamim. He holds, Rav Osha was the one who said if you eat Issa nowadays, you should keep a record as to how much you ate, because we're worried the shiurim might change with a new Beis Din, and then you'll know what you ate, and therefore you're chayiv whether you have to bring a carbon or not, because the shiurim might change in line with the Chachamim. Then, in the end, Rabbi Yochanan changed his mind, and he paskin like Rav Osha that the shiurim of Karbanis Re'iyah and Chachamim was from the Chagiga, it was from the Chachamim. But Rabbi Yonah and Rabbi Yossi, they both said no, he never changed his mind, and he didn't hold it. He didn't say it was from the Chachamim. Okay. We also see from the following that Rabbi Yochanan never changed his mind from his words, because Rabbi Lawson and Rav Ami, there's Machlekes Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. Chizkiah said you can divide the 2 ma'as kesef that you have to bring the whole chagiga. You can put it onto 2 animals, and each one will be worth 1 ma'as kesef for chagiga. Rabbi Yochanan said you can't divide your chiyuv of 2 animals to buy that. No, if you want to bring 2 animals for chagiga, then you have to have 2 ma'as kesef for each animal. If you only have 2, then you'll buy 1 animal. You can't divide into 2. Now you can't buy a karbanos chayva from money of kodesh, let's say Masa Sheni. You can't use your Masa Sheni money, you have to use chulin money. Now chagiga is an obligation, so you have to use chulin money. But the Chachamim learn that if you bring a chagiga with a bigger amount than what the Torah obligated, you can add in Masa Sheni money together with the chulin money to buy the carbon. So Rish Lakish, to the name of Chizkiah, you can add animals, so you can join animals bought with Masa Sheni with animals bought from chulin and bring all of them as a chagiga. But you cannot add Masa Sheni money to your chulin money in order to buy 1 animal for a chagiga. And Rabbi Yochanan said no. You can join Masa Sheni money to Ma'as Kesef of chulin to buy 1 animal, but you can't join animals bought with Masa Sheni with an animal bought of chulin and bring them as a chagiga, because you can't bring a chagiga which is completely from Masa. Now, how would we do? So if you, let's say you had 10 animals, and you're makdish 10 animals for a chagiga, and you bring 5 on the first day Yom Tov, and you want to bring the remainder can they be brought on the last day Yom Tov or not? Can they be pushed away to the last day Yom Tov? Said it's one said that yes, you can bring them on the last day Yom Tov. The other one said you can't. Now we don't know who said what. So Zaira said, we'll explain that the words of the Rabbanon, we can learn from the Chachamim from what they said. Now, who said what? Because Rabbi Yochanan was the one who said you can add Masechet money together with Chulin money in order to buy one animal for a Chagiga. But you can't have separate animals where one is from Chulin and one is from Masechet. So he must be the one who holds that the remaining animals can push away the last Yom Tov. Although there's din, you can't bring the Dorim and the Davos in Yom Tov, but the remaining animals can push away the last Yom Tov. And Rabbi Yochanan said you can spend on every animal 2 Mois Kesef from Mois Chulin. You can't buy other animals from Master Sheni on their own. So he holds each animal's got a din proper din of Chagiga, and therefore it's got a din Tashlumin, and therefore they can be brought on the last days of Yom Tov. Daled on the base. And Rish Lakish, however, who said you can bring animals together, you can buy an animal with Master Sheni money and an animal with Chulin money. But you can't start using Master Sheni money together with Chulin money to bring one animal. He will be the one who said it's not Teicha, you can't push away the last of Yom Tov. So the fact that Rish Lakish allows you to buy other animals from Master Sheni on its own, he holds that the first animal is a proper Chagiga, not like the other animals. So if you're not bringing the animals on the first day Yom Tov, then they're on the Dorim, the Davos, you can't bring them last day. Now Rav held like Rav Yochanan that you can actually be makdish further animals for your chagiga, and they can push away Yom Tov, and once until you've said, oh, that's it, I'm not doing any more. Now we mentioned Gwinas Chasadim. Now we're talking about Gwinas Chasadim with a person's body, but with his money, then there is a share how much a person should spend for tzedakah and the like. If it's in like Rish Lakish, Shem Yehuda Rechanina, they decided a person should give a chomesh, a fifth for Chasim, for doing the mitzvahs. Now how far does it go? From Gamliel said one said the share of Truma Gedolah and Trumas Maseh, which is 1 in 33 and a third. And the other one said no, you honor Hashem B'Ha'adcha from all you have, Reishis Kaltzu Asacha, like the share of Truma Gedolah, which is 1 in 50. And Rabbi Gamliel said if that's the case, does it mean a fifth every single year? Then you'll have nothing left after 5 years. So he said no, in the beginning it means from the principle you give a fifth, but after that it's out of the profits. Rav Huda said we're talking for mitzvahs a person should spend until a third. Now what does it mean, all mitzvahs till a third, or even one mitzvah? So he wanted to say all mitzvahs until a third. Then Rav Amon said, well, even one mitzvah. Now Rav Chaviva, Shem Rabbanan, they said, what does it mean a third? Does it mean a third of the money that you need for this mitzvah you do for a hidur? So if a person, let's say, bought an item with a mitzvah, then he sees a nicer one, how much do we bother him to spend more and to be mahad in the mitzvahs? And the one says until a shlish, a third of the original item that you wanted to buy. Turning to Daf Hey, Rabbi Shmuel says in a brayso, how can a person do a thing beautiful for his creator? But it means I'll do beautiful mitzvahs, I'll make a nice lulav, a nice sukkah, a nice shofar, tzitzis, tefillin. Abba Shaul said, I will be like him. If he is merciful, Chanam Racham, you should also be. And we bring a story of Rabbi Yishmav, who divided his estate to the poor. Rabbi Gamliel said, but you only have to give until a fifth. Now Rabbi Gamliel was actually before the Zakana Blusha. So how is it that he's sending that the Chachamim said shouldn't give more than a fifth? So Rabbi Levi, there was a halacha which they forgot. And then the Sanhedrin, they came and brought it back to the original Takana, which had come first. To tell you that if the base in Moshe Nefesh or something, then it's going to last as if it was given to Moshe Sinai. And it fits in like Rabbi Mana, that through Yigia in Torah you get the truth. They bring a pasuk, it's not Kiloi Dava Reikum Mikem, it's not empty from you. If it's Reik, it's Mikem, it's because of you. Now why? Why does it appear that something perhaps is empty? Because you're not working on it. Because Gihu Chayechem, when is it your life? At the time when you toil in it. Rav Tanchuma said the name Rav Huda, but Salah ben Uri ben Chur. It says he did all that Hashem commanded. Hashem commanded Moshe. Now it doesn't say what Moshe commanded him, but all that Hashem commanded Moshe. So telling you even things which he didn't hear from his teacher, Hashem agreed to it as if it was Moshe Sinai, and they bring down. So also we find like Hashem commanded Moshe's servants, and Moshe Yeshua, and so did Yeshua. Yeshua didn't move away from all that Hashem commanded Moshe. Again, it doesn't say what Moshe commanded him, But Hashem commanded Moshe that even things that Yeshua never heard, but they all agreed as if it was said at Sinai. Rabbi Yochanan Shem Rabbanaya, others, it says the Torah Emes was in his mouth. These are the things that he heard from his teacher. But then another pasuk, Avla Lanim Savisvasav, that even things which he didn't hear from his teacher, he managed to understand them through his toil. Rabbanan bring a pasuk that Hashem should be B'kislechi, he will guard yourself. That even things that you are perhaps foolish in, that you didn't learn from your teachers, Hashem will still guard you from being trapped. Rabbi Doisa said that you shouldn't stumble in making mistakes. And Rabbanan said from Avera, you shouldn't stumble in Avera b'shogeg. Rabbi said if you give from your pocket tzedakah, then Hashem will guard you. Hashem will guard you from various taxes and fines and other tithes of taxes and so on. The Gemara brings the story of Munvaz, the king, who gave everything to the poor. The family said to him, your father's stored everything and you're giving everything away. He says, yeah, I will do more, because my father's put things in the land, I've put things in heaven. He brings a pasuk to support that. My father's put treasures which don't produce fruit, but I've given things which produce true fruit, and he brings a pasuk to support that. My father's put things where you can't get hold of it. I've put things. My father's put stores in a place where people can get hold of it, and I've put things where people can't get hold of it. And also they've stored money, and I've connected nefashos, as it says, v'lekech nefashos chacham. Turning to Hey on the base, and my father's gathered for others, I've gathered things for myself. They gathered in this world, and I've gathered for the next world. It says tzedakah tatzim imaves. And now, surely one who gives tzedakah, surely he does die. But what it means is he won't die in la'asad lava in the future. And the mitzvah of tzedakah and gemilas chasadim corresponds to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But tzedakah applies with the living, and gemilas chasadim applies with the living and with the dead. And tzedakah is to the poor, and gemilas chasadim is for the poor and for the rich. And tzedakah applies with a person's money, and gemilas chesed applies with a person's money, and also with his body as well. And we don't know, Rabbi Yochanan ben Maria said, we don't know which one is more chaviv, is it tzedakah, gemilas chasadim, but the pasuk in Tehillim, Kuf Gimel, Chesed Hashem Ma'elam Adon and Yurev Tikasad Bnei Banim, it tells me that the gemilas chesed is more chaviv, more than tzedakah. Now, Talmud Torah, we asked to be sure, can a person teach his son Greek? He said he should teach it at a time when it's not day and not night. Now they say, Miss Yivonis is talking about Chochmos Yivonis, it's not necessarily the Greek language, but a time when it's not day and not night, he brings a pasuk, but if that's the case, if you can't teach your son a trade, but how can that be? It's a Bagitzva Yom Banana, but Yishmael said, you shall choose life, that's a reference to a trade. So Rabbi and they said no. The problem was the Greek side was because the Messiahs, the informers, they were worried they will say bad about the Jewish people. Rabbi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan said you're allowed to teach your daughter Yivonis because it's an ornament. Shimon Bava heard this. He said because you teach your daughter, therefore you quote Rabbi Yochanan saying it. I don't believe Rabbi Yochanan said it. Now Kibud Ava'im. Rabbi Baruch said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, they asked Rabbi Lezer, how far does Kibud Ava'im go? So he says, you're asking me, go and ask David ben Asina. Now he was the head of the army, and once his mother slapped him on his face in front of everyone, and her shoe fell down, which she used to hit him, and he passed it to her so that she shouldn't have pain. Rabbi Chizkiah said he was actually from Ashkelon and the head of the army, and the stone that his father sat on, he never sat down on it, and when his father died, he made it into an idol of some kind because of the covet of his father. So once the Yoshvei stone of Binyamin was lost, which was fixed in the Choshen, they said whoever's got this jewel should come, and then they said yes, Don Ben Asina has it. They go to him, they agree an amount 100 dinar, they go to bring it to them, he finds the father sleeping. And some say the key of the box was with his fingers of the father, so they couldn't wake up the father. They couldn't open the box without waking up the father. We're on to God's love. And some say that the father's leg was on the box, So he goes to the Chachamim and he says, look, I can't bring it to you. Then they said, maybe you want more money. So they raise the money to 200. Then they bring it to 1,000. When the father wakes up and they go, and when a sinner comes and brings the stone, and they want to pay him 1,000, but he wouldn't accept it. He said, no, well, that which I'm selling to you now is my father's honor. I'm not getting benefit from my father. So in the end, Hashem gave him a reward. And that night he had a paraduma, and they gave its weight in gold, and the Chachamim took it from him. Rav Shavsai said, it says, Mishpat Rose Tzedakah La Ya'aneh, Hashem doesn't delay the reward of those who do mitzvahs amongst the Goyim. Now Rav Tafen's mother, she went to walk in her courtyard on Shabbos. Rav Tafen went, he put his hands under her feet, and she was walking on them until she got to her bed. So once Rav Tafen was ill, the Chachamim go visit him, and they say, Daven for Tafen, my son, that he gives me more covered, too much. They said, what does he do? And she told them the story. They said, even if he does much more than that, it's not yet done enough. But another story we have with the mother of Rabbi Shmuel, she also complained to the Chachamim, and she said, look, he doesn't treat me with respect. So they were wondering, what does it mean? He doesn't treat you with respect? What does he do? She said, look, when he comes from the base of Medrash, I want to wash his feet in water and drink it, and he doesn't allow me. So he said, if that's what she wants you to do, that's what you have to do. That's what they told Rabbi Shmuel. Ramana said, that it's good what people say. Each person is merits in his box. The different people have to treat their parents in different ways. There was Reb Tafen's story, and then there was Rabbi Shmuel's story. So the mother of Tafen, she said he gives too much on her, and the answer of Tafen has to do even more. And the mother of Ishmael, she said he doesn't treat her enough. And they said, yes, he has to be mamayit from her cupboard if that's what her wishes are. Reb Zira was sad that he didn't have any parents. He said, I wish I had parents, I could give them honor, that he should get Gan Eden. When Reb Zira heard these various dinim that we had from the various stories, he says, Baruch Rahman, blessed Hashem that I haven't got a father or mother, not like Reb Tafen, that he wouldn't been able to do, not like Yishmael, that we would have been able to bear that. Rabbi Avon said, I'm part from Kibbud Avain. They said, because when his mother was pregnant, his father died, and when the mother gave birth, then the mother died at that point. Some can give their father very fat food and yet get Gehinnom, and some get them working in the mill, which is a hard work, and yet they get Gan Eden. So we can see an example of a person feeding his father good food and getting Gehinnom. Someone was feeding his father the chickens, and one time he told his father, my son, where do you get the chickens from? So then the son said, oh, Granddad, what do you care? Just eat and keep quiet, because the dogs eat and keep quiet. And so a person's giving his father the best food, but he gets Gehinnom, he's not treating his father with respect. But then you get cases where a person puts someone in the mill, and he gets Gan Eden. There was someone who was grinding in the mill, and then the messengers from the king came along to take the workers away from every family. And he said, Abba, he says, you grind instead of me, and I'll go to the army. And if they come, they get me, it'll be Bizayin, will be on me. Better that I go and not you. So therefore a person gets his father to work in the mill, and he's inheriting Gan Eden.